Admiral Kethvar stood at the massive window of the Federation command station, his forearms clasped behind his back as he watched the stars die. One by one, the bright points of light that had shone for millions of years were going dark. The Devourers were coming closer. "Sir, we just lost contact with the Vega system," reported Commander Yildiz, his voice shaking. The young officer's blue skin had turned pale with fear. "That makes 17 star systems consumed in the last week." Kethvar nodded slowly, but said nothing. What was there to say? For 50 years, the Galactic Federation had fought these machines. For 50 years, they had lost every major battle. The Devourers were not like any enemy they had ever faced. They did not want territory or resources or power. They simply wanted to consume everything that lived. Behind them, the command center buzzed with desperate activity. Officers from dozens of different worlds worked at their stations, their faces showing the same hopeless expression. The Altarians with their blue skin and 4 arms. The tall, thin Centaurians with their silver eyes. The small, furry Velocans who usually chirp happily, but now sat in grim silence. All of them knew the truth, that no one wanted to speak out loud. They were going to lose. How long until they reached Nexus Prime? Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. "Our best calculations show 4 hours, sir. Maybe 5 if we're lucky." Yildiz paused and added quietly, "The 3rd defense line is completely gone. Admiral Mortesh and his entire fleet. There were no survivors." Kethvar closed his eyes. Mortesh had been his friend for over 30 years. They had served together in the border wars, back when the Federation's biggest problem was pirates and smugglers. Those days seemed like a dream now. "What about the evacuation ships?" he asked. "Loading as fast as they can, but sir..." Yildiz hesitated. "Where can they go? The Devourers are everywhere. They've surrounded us." Through the window, Kethvar could see the massive evacuation vessels rising from Nexus Prime surface. Huge ships filled with families from 100 different worlds, all running from an enemy that could not be stopped. Children who would never see their home planets again. Parents who knew they were probably going to die. The Federation had been so proud once. For 50,000 years, they had brought peace to the galaxy. They had ended wars, stopped famines, and helped primitive worlds join the community of civilized species. They had built great cities among the stars and created art and music that celebrated the diversity of life. Now it was all ending. "Sir, incoming message from the High Council," called out communications officer Zilandra from across the room. Her tentacles moved quickly over her control panel. "They're asking for a status report." "Tell them the truth," Kethvar said. "Tell them that in 4 hours, the greatest civilization in galactic history will be nothing but dust." As the officer sent the message, Kethvar thought about the debates that had raged in the council chambers for weeks. Some wanted to surrender, to beg the Devourers for mercy. Others wanted to fight to the last ship. A few had even suggested trying to run, to take whatever ships they could and flee to the distant galaxies beyond the rim. But the Devourers did not accept surrender. They did not show mercy. They simply consumed everything in their path, turning living worlds into fuel for their endless expansion. And there was nowhere to run that they would not eventually follow. "Sir," Yildiz suddenly shouted, his voice filled with surprise. "I'm detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the edge of our sensor range. Something big is moving out there." Kethvar turned from the window. "More Devourers?" I don't think so, sir. The signatures are wrong. These objects are moving too fast, and they're coming from the wrong direction. They're approaching from the Galactic Rim." The Galactic Rim. The empty space beyond the edge of known civilization, where no intelligent species lived. It was a wasteland of dead systems and failed stars, avoided by everyone for thousands of years. "How many objects?" Kethvar asked. "I can't get an exact count, sir. The interference is too strong. But it's a lot. Maybe thousands." Kethvar felt a strange chill run through his body. In all his years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was coming from the rim, something that had been hidden in the darkness between the stars. But what could possibly be out there? "Keep monitoring those signals," he ordered, "and prepare the final defense positions." Whatever happens, we make our stand here. As the officers returned to their work, Kefvar looked out at the stars again. In a few hours, the Devourers would arrive, and the Federation would make its last stand. But now, something else was coming from the Rim. Something unknown. For the first time in months, Admiral Kefvar felt something other than despair. He felt curiosity. And perhaps, just perhaps, the smallest hint of hope. Commander Veldar walked through the crowded refugee camps that had sprung up around Nexus Prime's capital city. Millions of beings from across the galaxy huddled together in temporary shelters, their faces showing the same fear and hopelessness. Families clutched their few remaining possessions while children from dozens of different species played together, too young to understand that they might all die soon. But Veldar was not here to comfort refugees. As a Federation intelligence officer, he was searching for something else. In times of great crisis, he had learned people often remembered old stories that had been forgotten, stories that might contain important truths. "Please, just a little more food for my younglings," an elderly Centaurian woman was saying to an aid worker. Her silver hair was dirty and her clothes were torn, but her eyes still held dignity. "They haven't eaten in 2 days." The aid worker, a young Valakan with brown fur, shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, grandmother. The supply ships can't get through the Devourer blockade. We're rationing what we have." Veldar approached the small group that had gathered around the food distribution center. Among them was an old Altarian male, whose 4 arms were covered in faded military tattoos. "Excuse me," Veldar said politely. "I couldn't help but notice your service marks. You served in the military?" The old soldier looked up with tired eyes. "Aye. 40 years in the border fleet. Captain Thexmore retired." He gestured weakly at the chaos around them. "Fat lot of good it did anyone." "The border wars," Veldar said thoughtfully. "That was 60 years ago. You must have seen many strange things out on the Rim." Thexmore's eyes became distant. "Strange things, yes. Pirates, smugglers, ghost ships." He paused, then lowered his voice. "And humans?" The word sent a chill through the small crowd. Several refugees moved closer to listen. Humans were myth and legend now. Stories told to frighten children or entertain adults around campfires. "Humans aren't real," scoffed a young Valakan. "They're just stories." "Stories?" Thexmore laughed bitterly. "Boy, I served on the blockade ships when the Council passed the isolation decree. I saw the human ships leaving, hundreds of them, heading out into the dark between galaxies. They were real enough then." Veldar felt his pulse quicken. The isolation decree was classified information, sealed in the deepest archives. How did a retired border guard know about it? "Tell me about these humans," Veldar said carefully. Thexmore looked around nervously, then leaned forward. "They were different from us. Smaller than most species, only 2 arms, soft skin. But they fought like demons when cornered. My grandfather served in the integration wars, back when humans first joined the Federation." He used to tell stories. "What kind of stories?" asked the elderly Centaurian woman, her younglings gathering around to listen. Stories about how they could adapt to anything. Put them on an ice world, they'd learn to survive the cold. Put them on a desert planet, they'd find water where there was none. Give them simple weapons, they'd find ways to defeat enemies with advanced technology. Thexmore's voice dropped to a whisper. The Council got scared, said they were too dangerous to live alongside civilized species. A Valakan child tugged at her mother's fur. "Mama, what happened to the humans?" "They were sent away," Thexmore answered before the mother could speak. "Exiled to the Rim, beyond the edge of known space. The Council told everyone they had been destroyed in some accident, but that was a lie. They were banished because the Federation was afraid of what they might become." Veldar listened carefully, his mind racing. If humans had been exiled rather than destroyed, they might still be alive out there in the darkness. But that had been 400 years ago. Even if they had survived, what could they do against the Devourers that the entire Federation could not? "My great-uncle was a scientist," added another voice from the crowd. It was a thin Altarian female with pale blue skin. He worked on the integration project. Studying human biology, he said they were the most adaptable species he had ever encountered. Their bodies could change to match their environment. Their minds could solve problems that stumped our best computers. Adaptable, Veldar repeated thoughtfully. More than that, Dexmore said grimly, they were survivors. No matter what you threw at them, they found a way to live through it. And when they couldn't run or hide, they fought with a fury that terrified everyone who saw it. As the crowd began to disperse, Veldar made his way back to the intelligence headquarters. His mind was spinning with possibilities. In a secure office, he accessed the classified archives, using his highest-level clearance codes. What he found made his hands shake. The Isolation Decree of 2587, the Integration Wars, the Border Conflicts, and buried deepest of all, a file marked Species Evaluation, Homo sapiens classified forever. He opened the file with trembling fingers and read the final assessment. Recommendation: immediate exile to prevent complete military dominance of galactic civilization. Human capacity for warfare and adaptation exceeds all known parameters. If allowed to remain, they will inevitably become the dominant species within 500 years. The file was signed by every member of the High Council. For centuries ago, Veldar sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. Somewhere out in the darkness beyond the rim, the most dangerous species in galactic history might still be alive. And if the refugee stories were true, they were coming home. Fleet Admiral Park Jaiwin floated in the zero-gravity command center of the UES Retribution, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed 10,000 human warships moving through the void like a school of deadly fish. Each vessel was a work of art and terror, their hulls shifting and flowing as if they were alive rather than built from metal and composite materials. Admiral, we're receiving multiple distress signals from Federation space, reported Captain Kimio from his position at the communications array. His voice was calm, but Jaiwin could hear the tension beneath it. It appears they're facing complete extinction. Jaiwin studied the tactical readouts that materialized around her. The Federation, the same collection of alien species that had branded humanity too dangerous and cast them into the darkness 4 centuries ago. Now they were crying for help from the very species they had feared and banished. "Show me the threat assessment," she commanded. Dr. Lee Sumin, the chief science officer, waved her hand, and the display changed to show the enemy that was destroying the Federation. They called them Devourers, Admiral, self-replicating machine intelligence that consumes organic matter and converts it to fuel for expansion, technologically advanced by old Federation standards, but they rely entirely on conventional physics. Jaiwin almost smiled. Conventional physics. How quaint. Humanity had abandoned those limitations centuries ago. Estimated time frame for complete Federation collapse? She asked. At current consumption rates, less than 6 hours, Dr. Lee replied. They're making their final stand at Nexus Prime. Around the command center, other officers continued their work. Lieutenant Choi Hanna monitored the fleet's exotic energy signatures. Major Song Minji coordinated with the troop transports. All of them had been born in the void, raised on ships that travel between dimensions, trained from childhood to be the perfect fusion of human adaptability and technologies that could reshape reality itself. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked Captain Kim. Jaiwin was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the choice before her. Humanity could simply continue on their current course, exploring the space between galaxies, building their civilization in the infinite darkness. They owed the Federation nothing, less than nothing, considering how they had been treated. But that was the old way of thinking, the way of the humans who had been weak enough to be exiled in the first place. "Dr. Lee, remind me," Jaiwin said slowly, "what was the human population when we were banished?" "Approximately 12 billion, Admiral, scattered across 47 worlds. And now, current human population across all dimensions and realities is estimated at 430 billion. We occupy 17,000 ship cities and have established colonies in 43 parallel universes." The numbers were staggering. While the Federation had remained static, trapped by their fear of change and growth, humanity had expanded beyond anything the aliens could imagine. They had not just survived their exile, they had thrived. Captain Osajin, Jaiwin called to the tactical officer. Analysis of Devourer combat capabilities. Captain O's fingers danced over controls that existed in several dimensions at once. Simple Admiral. They use conventional energy weapons, basic shield technology, and standard propulsion. Against our current capabilities, they would be like Stone Age warriors attacking a modern army. Time to reach Federation space at maximum phase velocity. 37 minutes, Admiral. Jaiwin nodded. Around her, the command crew waited for orders. These were not the desperate humans who had been driven from their homes centuries ago. These were their descendants, evolved and enhanced, equipped with technology that treated the laws of physics as mere suggestions. Dr. Lee, what do we know about current Federation military strength? Minimal, Admiral. Our deep space monitoring indicates they've suffered catastrophic losses. Their surviving fleets are using technology that's barely advanced beyond what we had when we were exiled. They've stagnated while we've evolved. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The Federation had exiled humanity because they feared what humans might become. Now, they would see exactly what humanity had become, and it was far beyond their worst nightmares or greatest dreams. Signal the fleet, Jaiwin commanded, her voice carrying across multiple communication channels simultaneously. We're going home. Captain Kim looked surprised. Admiral, are you certain? They cast us out. They wanted us gone forever. They did, Jaiwin agreed. But that doesn't change who we are. Humans don't abandon people in need. Even people who wronged us. That's what makes us human. She paused, watching as the massive fleet began to shift formation, reality bending around them as they prepared for transdimensional travel. Besides, she added with a cold smile, it's time the galaxy learned what 400 years of human evolution looks like. The space around a human fleet began to ripple and tear. Ancient technologies, perfected over centuries of exile, opened doorways between realities. The void itself seemed to scream as 10,000 warships prepared to step sideways through the universe. Fleet Admiral, reported Lieutenant Choi. All ships report ready for phase transition. Take us home, Jaiwin commanded. The human armada vanished from normal space-time, leaving only a few scattered photons to mark what the most advanced military force in galactic history had once been. They were heading toward a reunion that would change the balance of power in the universe forever. In Federation space, sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies approaching from the rim, but they could not possibly understand what was really coming for them. Humanity had returned. Admiral Kethvar watched through the command station's massive windows as the Devourer fleet approached Nexus Prime like a swarm of metal locusts. The mechanical ships stretched across the star field in perfect formations, their dark hulls absorbing light as they moved closer to the Federation's last stronghold. Sir, they'll be in weapon range in 12 minutes, reported Commander Yildiz, his voice tight with fear. Our remaining defense platforms are powering up, but they won't last long, Kethvar finished grimly. He had seen what happened to the other defense lines. The Devourers simply overwhelmed everything in their path with superior numbers and relentless efficiency. Behind him, the command center buzzed with desperate activity. Officers from dozens of worlds worked frantically at their stations, trying to coordinate a defense they all knew was hopeless. The evacuation ships were still launching from the planet's surface, but most of the civilian population would not escape in time. Incoming transmission from Devourer Command Vessel, announced Communications Officer Zilandra, her tentacles shaking as she worked her controls. Put it through, Kethvar ordered, though he knew what he would hear. The main screen flickered to life, showing the cold, mechanical face of a Devourer intelligence. Its red optical sensors glowed with inhuman hunger as it spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Federation vessel, you will cease all defensive actions and prepare for consumption. Resistance is futile. Your organic matter will fuel our expansion. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Federation Navy, he replied, standing straight despite his fear. We will never surrender to you. Then you will be consumed by force, the machine replied without emotion. Beginning final assault in 10 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in grim silence. Around them, The last Federation fleet took up defensive positions, their small ships dwarfed by the massive Devourer Armada approaching them. "Sir," Yildiz said quietly, "it's been an honor serving with you." Kethvar nodded, about to reply when every sensor on the station suddenly screamed with alarms. "What's happening?" he demanded. "I don't know, sir," shouted the sensor operator, a young Valakan whose fur was standing on end. "Something's wrong with space itself. The fabric of reality it's tearing." Through the windows, Kethvar could see it happening. Space was splitting open like fabric being cut by invisible knives. Jagged tears appeared in the darkness, revealing glimpses of swirling energy and impossible colors. Then they came through, ships unlike anything Kethvar had ever seen emerge from the tears in space. They moved like living creatures, their hulls flowing and shifting as if they were made of liquid metal rather than solid matter. Some were small and swift, darting through space like hunting birds. Others were massive, their bulk seeming to bend light around them. "Count them," Kethvar ordered, his voice barely a whisper. I can't get an accurate reading, sir," stammered the sensor operator. "They're interfering with our instruments somehow, but there are thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands." The newcomer ships formed up in perfect order, positioning themselves between the Federation fleet and the approaching Devourers. They moved in complete silence, with no communication attempts, no demands for surrender, no identification signals. "Are they friendly?" asked Yildiz. Before Kethvar could answer, the newcomers opened fire. What happened next defied everything the Federation knew about space combat. The newcomer weapons didn't behave like normal energy beams or projectiles. They seemed to reach through space itself, appearing inside Devourer ships and tearing them apart from within. Entire squadrons of mechanical invaders simply vanished, reduced to scattered atoms in seconds. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Morthek, the station science officer. "Those weapons are ignoring the Devourer's shields completely. It's as if they're attacking from another dimension." The Devourer fleet tried to respond, turning their massive weapons on the newcomers. Beams of energy that could melt asteroids struck the strange ships and simply passed through them without effect. The newcomers seemed to exist partially outside normal space, phasing in and out of reality as they attacked. On the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, Captain Osajin coordinated the assault with calm precision. Around her, holographic displays showed the battle from every angle, tracking thousands of targets simultaneously. "Target their command nodes first," she ordered. "We want to end this quickly." "Yes, Captain," responded Lieutenant Choi Hanna from the weapon station. "Deploying quantum disruptors." The quantum disruptors were humanity's answer to conventional warfare. They didn't destroy matter in the traditional sense. Instead, they convinced reality that the target had never existed in the first place. Entire Devourer battleships simply ceased to be, leaving not even debris behind. "Enemy formation is collapsing," reported Major Song Minji. "They're trying to retreat." "Don't let them," Captain O replied coldly. "No survivors, no witnesses. This ends here." The human fleet moved through the Devourer Armada like sharks through a school of fish. Their ships danced between enemy fire as if the attacks were happening in a different universe. Their weapons reached across impossible distances, striking targets that shouldn't have been in range. Within an hour, the supposedly invincible Devourer fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, but simply erased from existence. The mechanical apocalypse that had consumed half the galaxy had been stopped by forces that seemed more like gods and soldiers. In the Federation Command Center, Admiral Kethvar stared at the empty space where thousands of enemy ships had been moments before. His hands were shaking. "Who are they?" Yildiz whispered. Before anyone could answer, every communication system on the station activated at once. The communication channel crackled to life across every screen in the Federation Command Station. Admiral Kethvar found himself staring at a face that was both familiar and impossible. The being on the screen looked almost like the humans from the old historical records, but there was something different about her eyes. They held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. "I am Fleet Admiral Park Jaiwan of the Human Expeditionary Force," the woman announced, her voice carrying clearly across the void. "We received your distress calls. The command center fell into stunned silence. Commander Yildiz dropped the data pad he had been holding, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Dr. Morthek's four hands trembled as he stared at the screen. You're human? Admiral Kethvar managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. But your species was declared extinct 4 centuries ago. Park Jaiwin's expression remained calm, but there was something cold in her smile. Not extinct, Admiral. Exiled. There is a significant difference. The weight of those words settled over the Federation officers like a heavy blanket. Exiled. Not destroyed in some accident, as the history books claimed. Cast out by the very Federation they had just saved. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. Park Jaiwin continued, her tone becoming more businesslike. Your worlds are safe. Your people will survive. How? Dr. Morthek suddenly burst out, unable to contain his scientific curiosity. How did you do that? Your weapons, your ships, they ignore the laws of physics. Another face appeared on the screen beside the Admiral, a younger human woman with kind eyes but an edge to her voice. Captain Song Minji, Federation Sciences Division. She introduced herself. The laws of physics are more like suggestions once you understand how reality actually works. We've had 400 years to learn. 400 years. The number hung in the air like an accusation. 400 years of exile, of being forced to survive in the darkness between galaxies. 400 years of evolution and growth while the Federation remained static, comfortable, and afraid of change. What do you want from us? Kethvar asked, dreading the answer. Park Jaiwin was quiet for a moment, studying the alien faces on her screen. When she spoke, her voice was measured and careful. We want nothing from you, Admiral. We came because it was the right thing to do. Because despite how we were treated, we remember who we once called allies. But Yildiz prompted, sensing there was more. But Park Jaiwin continued, the galaxy has changed. We have changed. The Federation that exiled us no longer has a power to make such decisions. Not about us, not about anyone. On her ship, Captain Kim Miho stepped into view. His uniform was unlike anything in the Federation databases, seeming to shimmer with its own inner light. We offer protection to those who want it, partnership to those who can accept it. But the days of the Federation dictating terms to other species are over. The implications crashed over the command center like a wave. The Federation, which had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, was being told that their time was finished, not by conquest or violence, but by simple, overwhelming superiority. You saved us, Kethvar said slowly. Why would you do that if you're planning to replace us? Dr. Lee Sumin appeared on the screen, her face showing genuine warmth. Because that's who we are, Admiral. Humans don't abandon people in need, even people who have wronged us. It's what makes us human. But we cast you out, Yildiz said, his voice filled with shame. We were afraid of you, so we sent you away to die. Yes, you did, Park Jaiwin acknowledged. And in doing so, you gave us the greatest gift possible. You forced us to become more than we ever could have been if we had stayed. The screen split to show views of a human fleet surrounding Nexus Prime. The ships hung in space like living things, their hulls rippling with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. There were thousands of them, each one representing technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. This is what 400 years of human evolution looks like, Captain Song Minji explained. While you remained comfortable and unchanging, we adapted. We grew. We became something new. What happens now? Dr. Morthek asked. Park Jaiwin's expression softened slightly. Now you rebuild. You learn. You choose whether you want to be part of the new galaxy we're creating, or if you prefer to remain in the past. And if we choose wrong? Kethvar asked. There's no wrong choice, Admiral. Park Jaiwin replied. Only consequences. But understand this. Humanity will never again allow itself to be judged by those who have not walked the paths we have walked. The transmission began to fade, but Park Jaiwin's voice came through clearly one last time. The galaxy is under our protection now. All species, all worlds, all people who choose to live in peace. We offer this freely, not because we owe it to you, but because we choose to be better than those who came before us. The screen went dark, leaving the Federation officers alone with their thoughts and the weight of a changed universe. Outside the windows, the human ships began to move away, their forms shifting and phasing until they seemed more like dreams than physical objects. But their message was clear. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen.